The silence over New Horizon colony was a place of peace. The two suns painted the skies in gold and red every morning, and every evening the purple dusk fell slow and soft. Children laughed in the wide streets, chasing each other. Between the rows of glowing lanterns, farmers sold bright fruits from long tables, and traders from other colonies came to bargain for rare goods. No one here thought of war. No one believed danger could reach this far edge of the galaxy. It had been decades since the last conflict, and New Horizon was proud to be called the Jewel of the Outer Rim. Captain Elias Ward stood on the balcony of the colony's central tower. Looking out over the city, he loved this world, its clean air, its friendly people. It was far from the politics of Earth, far from the endless noise of the core systems. Here, the stars felt closer, like old friends. But tonight, something in the air felt wrong. The wind was too still, the city too quiet under the twin moons. He tried to shake it off, telling himself he was just tired. At that same moment, deep in orbit, a young watch officer named Kara Holt stared at her console in disbelief. The sensor grid had gone blind, every scan returning static. Then, without warning, the static cleared, revealing massive shapes sliding out of the darkness. 1, 2, 3. Then dozens, then hundreds. Black ships with no running lights, their hulls sharp like blades. They were not broadcasting any identification codes. They were silent, and they were heading straight for New Horizon. Kara's voice trembled as she opened the emergency channel. "This is Orbital Station 2, unidentified fleet incoming, repeat. Unidentified fleet approaching fast." Her words were cut off by a blinding flash. One of the alien ships fired, and the orbital station vanished. In a single burst of light, down in the city, the sky lit up. People pointed at the sudden streaks of fire above, thinking it was a meteor shower. Then the first explosions shook the ground. The colony's defense sirens wailed for the first time in decades. Captain Ward grabbed the comm unit, shouting orders to evacuate. But even as his voice rang out, the horizon burned. The alien warships descended through the upper atmosphere. Moving like shadows, their weapons tore through buildings, streets, entire districts. Families ran in panic, clutching children, pulling the old and the sick toward the underground shelters. But the bombardment was too fast, too precise. It was not an invasion, it was an execution. Ward fought his way through the smoke to the command center. Screens showed the colony's defense grid failing one node after another. The planetary shield generators exploded before they could even power up. Whoever these attackers were, they had come prepared, and they had come to kill in the chaos. A single comm officer managed to break through the jamming for just a few seconds. The distress signal was short, only 4 words, but it carried the truth to every listening ear in deep space. "They are killing us." Then the channel went dead. Ward looked out at his city one last time. Flames painted the night red. The twin moons shone down cold and uncaring. Screens rose and fell in the streets as alien gunships hunted survivors. He knew they had minutes left, maybe less. There would be no rescue tonight. The nearest Terran fleet was weeks away. Somewhere in the smoke, a child's cry cut through the roar of the bombardment. Ward ran toward the sound, shoving aside debris. He found a little girl crouched beside the still body of her mother, her small face streaked with ash and tears. She looked up at him and whispered, "Why?" Ward had no answer. Above, the alien fleet pulled back into high orbit. Their work almost done. They had not come to conquer. They had come to send a message. And the ashes of New Horizon would carry that message across the stars. Far away, beyond the outer systems, Earth would hear that message. And the day would come when humanity would answer, not with words, but with fire. The gathering of steel. The message from New Horizon reached Earth 13 days after the colony's destruction. It came through in fragments, distorted by static, and the void between stars. But the 4 words were clear, burned into every mind that heard them. "They are killing us." In the great hall of Earth's unified defense command, the lights were dim. Around a massive holographic table, the leaders of every nation and colony stood in silence. Some had tears in their eyes, others had rage, but none of them spoke. Until Admiral Kane stepped forward, his voice like steel. "We have been struck without warning, without reason, and without mercy," he said. "They think we are weak. They think we will hide. They think this galaxy belongs to them." He leaned forward, his gaze sweeping across every face. "They are wrong. The order went out in less than an hour. Operation Vengeance was born. Shipyards in Earth orbit came alive, cranes swinging. Reactors roaring. On Mars, factories that once built civilian transports now poured out heavy armor plating and missile bays. The moon's underground hangars, silent for decades, opened once more to the black sky. Everywhere, the forges burned hot. Messages spread across every colony. Pilots were recalled from leave. Engineers pulled from mining rigs, even merchant. Captains were summoned. The call was not just for soldiers, it was for every hand that could fight. And humanity answered in the gas giant shipyards of Jupiter. Entire battlecruisers rose from the skeleton frames in days instead of months. Massive dreadnoughts, the size of cities, floated free of their docks, their hulls shining silver under. Distant suns, every vessel, no matter how old or small, was armed. Civilian freighters had their cargo bays filled with missile racks, mining rigs fitted with railguns that could punch through battleship armor. Even pleasure yachts were stripped down and rebuilt into fast attack raiders. The fleet was growing. Fast, but so was the anger. Across the networks, images of New Horizons' burning streets played on every channel. The cries of survivors echoed in every home. And in those cries, humanity found its purpose. In the cold void beyond Pluto, the secret shipyard known only as Black Forge came online here. The most advanced weapons in human history were loaded onto the largest warships ever built. Warships so massive they cast shadows over entire moons. One of them, the TSS Titan's Wrath, was so heavily armed it could wipe out a fleet by itself. But Titan's Wrath was not alone. Hundreds more like her were being born. By the third month, the count of warships passed 200,000. By the fourth, 500,000. By the sixth, humanity had assembled the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen, 700,000 warships. From small corvettes to dreadnoughts, the size of mountains, they filled the black with steel and firepower. The alien spies who saw it didn't live long enough to report it. But whispers still reached the Verkai Dominion. Whispers of an armada so vast it could eclipse the stars. The Verkai laughed at first, calling it a bluff. They claimed humanity could never build such a force. But the laughter did not last on. The icy moon of Europa. A final meeting of the fleet commanders took place. Admiral Kane stood before the gathered officers, each one representing 1,000 ships. Behind him, the massive star map showed the enemy's worlds marked in crimson. "This is not a war for territory," Kane said, his voice carrying through the hall. "This is a war for justice." He pointed at the mark where New Horizon once was. "They thought they could erase us," he said. "We will erase the very idea that they can touch humanity without consequence." The commanders raised their fists in silent agreement. No cheers, no smiles, only grim determination. The fleet was ready. Every captain knew the cost would be high. Many would not return, but not one ship withdrew from the operation. In the silent black between the stars, the Armada began to move, 700,000 warships, accelerating. Together, their engines lighting up the void like a rising sun. From Earth to the furthest colony, every human heart beat with the same fierce rhythm. The galaxy would remember this day, the day the Deathworlders gathered their steel and began their march toward vengeance. The first strike, the human armada did not rush blindly into the heart of Verka space. Every move was planned, every target chosen with precision. The admirals knew the first strike would set the tone for the entire war. It had to be swift, devastating, and unforgettable, far ahead of the main fleet. A group of Terran stealth ships slipped through the darkness. Their black hulls drank in the light of distant stars, vanishing into the void. No beacon, no signal, no sound betrayed their approach. They were ghosts, and they carried the wrath of Earth. Their first target was Urith Prime, a massive shipyard orbiting a gas giant in Verkay territory. It was here the Dominion built the backbone of its fleets. Dozens of warships lay in dry dock, their weapons incomplete, their shields offline. The Verkay believed the war was still months away. They had no idea the Deathworlders were already here. Inside the stealth cruiser Shadowfang, Captain Rourke watched the glowing outline of the shipyard appear on the holodisplay. "Final approach," the navigator whispered. Rourke nodded once, his voice calm but cold. "Load all torpedoes. Target the reactors and command centers. We finish this before they even know we're here." At exactly 3:14 ship time, the first salvo launched. Silent streaks of death crossed the void, each carrying enough firepower to tear a battleship apart. The torpedoes struck home in seconds. The shipyard was a storm of fire. Explosions chained through half-finished warships, ripping them open like paper. Verkay workers screamed as the void claimed them. On the comms, panicked alien voices crackled to life. "Unknown attackers, shields offline, reactors critical." Then silence. The Dominion had not even fired a shot in defense before Urith Prime ceased to exist. But the Terrans were not finished. A second stealth group hit a Verkay supply convoy near the border. Missiles struck from beyond sensor range, shattering fuel carriers and cargo haulers. Without supplies, the frontline fleets would starve in deep space. By the time the Verkay High Command learned of the attack, their logistics network was in ruins in the capital city of the Verkay homeworld. The High Council met in a state of disbelief. "This is impossible," growled the War Minister, his mandibles clicking in anger. "No species could build a fleet of that size, and no one can move so far, so fast." Yet the reports kept coming. More shipyards destroyed, patrol fleets vanishing, outposts going dark. The humans were not attacking like the Verkay. They were striking like hunters, killing quickly, disappearing before retaliation. On the outer edges of their empire, Verkay civilians whispered in fear. They called the Terrans the Silent Death. Some claimed to have seen entire human fleets appear out of nothing, rain fire for minutes, then vanish. Whether the stories were true or not, fear began to spread faster than truth. Back in the Shadowfang, Captain Rourke received new orders. The main fleet was moving, but his unit was to push deeper, to strike a target that would send shockwaves through the entire galaxy. The Verkay Fleet Command Station on Drevek 4. It was the heart of enemy coordination, the place where all battle orders were issued. Destroy it, and the Dominion would be blind. 3 days later, Rourke's strike force arrived at Drevek 4. The station was a fortress, armored walls, shielded bays, thousands of defense guns. But the humans had a weapon, the Verkay did not. A new generation of kinetic penetrators, projectiles, so fast they ignored shields entirely. When the Shadowfang fired, the rounds hit like meteors. Sections of the station tore free, spinning into the black. Docked ships exploded before they could even power up. Inside Fleet Command, Verkay officers shouted orders in panic. Alarms blared. Flames spread through the corridors. By the time the humans withdrew, Drevek 4 was nothing but a drifting wreck. Across the galaxy, the news spread. The Verkay Dominion had suffered a blow no one thought possible. In taverns, marketplaces, and under the quiet lights of spaceports, alien captains whispered the same warning. "The humans are coming." Back with the main fleet, Admiral Kane received Rourke's final transmission, one line only. "The first strike is complete, Admiral. They will never forget it." In the darkness of his command deck, Kane allowed himself a small nod. The enemy had been wounded, humiliated, and made to feel fear. But this was only the beginning. The full fury of 700,000 warships was still waiting. And soon, the galaxy would learn what vengeance truly meant. Shadows before the storm, the Verkay Dominion had always believed in strength. They ruled by fear, crushing any world that resisted. But now, For the first time in centuries, they were the ones who feared, and the humans made sure that fear grew with every passing day. Even before the main fleet arrived, Earth sent its shadows. Teams of Black Ops soldiers, covert ships, and silent assassins moved through the galaxy. They were unseen, unheard, but their presence was felt everywhere. They did not come in the open like soldiers, they came like ghosts. On the Verkai world of Ravax, the capital of an important supply sector, a strange thing happened. The city woke to find its planetary shield generators offline, no alarms. No explosions, just gone. Engineers searched the control hubs only to find them empty. Every hard drive wiped. On the walls, someone had carved 3 words in crude alien script: "We are here." In the mining colonies of Krelos Belt, freighters began to vanish without a trace. The Vorkai sent escort ships, but they too disappeared. Weeks later, the drifting wrecks were found, every system fried. Every crew missing, no bodies, no signs of struggle, just silence. Rumors spread that the humans took prisoners only to send them back broken, their minds shattered. The truth was simpler. The humans wanted every Verkai captain to look over their shoulder, wondering if today was their last. Meanwhile, human operatives planted false signals and hacked communications. Entire fleets of the Dominion were sent chasing phantom enemies. Ships burned fuel. Soldiers wasted days jumping from one empty sector to another. When they returned, they found their bases gone, their depots destroyed. It was death without a battle victory, without a fight. One night, above the Verkai colony world of Zereth, a lone Terran stealth cruiser appeared in high orbit. It broadcast a single live feed to every device on the planet. The screen showed New Horizon colony, the screams of children echoing in the background. Then the image cut to Admiral Kane's face. His voice was steady, calm, and cold. "You started this," he said. "We will end it." And then the cruiser vanished before the planetary guns could even lock on. The effect was devastating. Markets closed, work stopped. People whispered in the streets for the first time. The civilians of the Vorkai began to doubt their leader's promise of safety. In the grand chamber of the Verkai High Council, chaos reigned. Generals shouted for more fleets. Ministers demanded fortifications. The War Minister slammed his clawed fist on the table. "They are breaking us without even fighting," he roared. But the truth was worse. The humans were fighting, just not in the way the Verkai understood. Every time the Dominion tried to strike back, they found nothing. Human bases shifted location every week. Supply ships used random jump routes. It was like trying to hit smoke. And still, every few days, another world went dark. Another fleet went missing. The psychological war was taking its toll. Veteran Vorkai soldiers began refusing orders to patrol deep space. Merchant crews mutinied rather than risk vanishing into the human shadow. Even high-ranking admirals started requesting transfers to worlds far from the front. Then came the boldest strike yet on the heavily fortified world of Kravos Prime, the Dominion's third-largest weapons foundry. Security was tight, thousands of soldiers, hundreds of gun turrets. Shield walls 20 meters thick, yet one morning, every gun in the city aimed itself at the sky. The targeting systems had been hacked, and written in the central plaza, in fire that burned for hours, were the words, "We see you, the Verkai." Emperor himself appeared on the network, declaring the humans cowardly for hiding. He promised they would be hunted down and destroyed. But his voice shook, and the people saw it. For all their power, the Verkai could not stop the humans from coming and going as they pleased. Far away, aboard the Terran flagship TSS Titan's Wrath, Admiral Kane reviewed the reports. Every mission had succeeded, supply lines cut, morale broken, defenses sabotaged. The enemy was bleeding, more importantly. They were afraid. "Good," Kane said to his officers. "When fear takes root, they make mistakes." The human fleet was now within striking distance of the first Verkai core worlds. The shadows had done their work. The prey was exhausted. wounded and unsteady, and soon the hunters would strike in full in the blackness of space. 700,000 warships waited, engines silent, weapons armed, when they moved. The galaxy would remember the sound of vengeance. The invasion begins. The Vorkai Dominion had spent months bracing for the human attack. They built more defenses, moved fleets into choke points, and fortified worlds. But when the invasion began, nothing could prepare them for what came out of the void at exactly 0400 Terran Standard Time. Every human warship engaged its jump drives. From the edge of the galaxy to the core of enemy space, the Armada moved as one, 700,000 warships, accelerating through hyperspace corridors. Their combined energy signatures lit up sensors across half the known galaxy. It was not a fleet, it was a moving wall of steel and fire. The first target was the Vorkai border world of Korath. It was heavily defended, 3 planetary shields, 10 orbital stations, and a fleet of 300 warships in orbit. To the Vorkai commanders, it felt impenetrable. To the Terran Admiralty, it was simply the first obstacle. When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace, the black of space turned into light. Thousands of ships emerged in perfect formation. Dreadnoughts led the charge, carriers released clouds of fighter craft, and missile frigates fanned out like predators. The Vorkai fleet moved to intercept, but before they could close the distance, the humans opened fire. The first volley was like nothing the Vorkai had ever faced. Massive railgun slugs moved at a fraction of light speed, tearing through shields like paper. Missile swarms split apart and reformed mid-flight. Evading countermeasures, entire Vorkai destroyers vanished in balls of flame before they could return fire. On the ground, Korath City shook as orbital bombardments targeted planetary defenses. Shield generators erupted in fire, their protective domes collapsing. Terran dropships pierced the clouds, landing shock troops in the heart of enemy strongholds. These were not slow sieges. The humans took cities in hours. Their soldiers moved with precision, every step covered by drones and artillery from orbit. Vorkai commanders tried to regroup their fleets, but every time they formed a battle line, human warships split into attack wings and tore through them from multiple angles. It was coordinated chaos, deadly and unstoppable. Within 16 hours, Korath's defenses were gone. Its skies belonged to Earth. The news spread fast. The next world, Varithus, surrendered without a fight. Its governor broadcast a message to the humans, offering the planet's resources in exchange for mercy. Admiral Kane accepted, but stripped the Vorkai military officers of rank and sent them to labor camps. The humans were not here to bargain. They were here to dismantle an empire, piece by piece, in the capital of the Dominion. The High Council was in uproar. Reports came in so fast they overlapped. 4 more border worlds had fallen in 2 days. Entire fleets had gone missing, destroyed or forced to retreat. The Vorkai Emperor demanded counterattacks, but his admirals could only shake their heads. Every time they sent reinforcements, the humans intercepted them mid-journey, destroying them before they reached their target. Back aboard the TSS Titan's Wrath, Admiral Kane stood before a massive holographic map. Entire sectors were flashing with human control markers. "Their lines are broken," Kane told his staff. "We push deeper, faster, before they recover." And so the invasion spread. Terran fleets split into massive strike groups, each targeting a core supply hub or command center. Dozens of Vorkai worlds burned at once. The humans didn't just take planets, they severed trade routes, crippled shipyards, and captured strategic moons. Every strike was meant to weaken the Dominion's ability to fight. On Ravnos 3, a Vorkai shipyard world, the battle lasted only 4 hours. Human marines stormed the orbital docks, seizing unfinished enemy warships and turning their guns on the Vorkai fleet. The surviving defenders fled into hyperspace, chased by Terran destroyers until they were nothing but debris. Civilians across the Dominion watched the war unfold in real time. At first, they believed the propaganda that the humans could be stopped, but as world after world fell, they began to whisper a new truth. The humans could not be stopped. Even the Verkai soldiers began to falter. Some surrendered without a fight, dropping their weapons the moment human troops arrived. Others fled into the outer systems, abandoning their posts. Fear had become a stronger enemy than any human weapon. By the end of the second week, the humans stood only a few jumps away from the Vorkai homeworld itself. Entire sectors lay silent. Behind them, stripped of military power, and still, Admiral Kane pushed forward. "This is not over until the Emperor kneels," he told his fleet, and in every ship, from the smallest corvette to the largest dreadnought, the crews roared their agreement. The invasion had begun with steel and fire. It would end with justice. And the galaxy was watching. The day of reckoning, the Vorkai homeworld had never been breached. Its defenses were legendary rings of orbital fortresses, shielded weapon platforms, fleets stationed in layered formation. For centuries, it had stood as the heart of the Dominion's power. But on this day, the black skies above it would burn. At dawn local time, the darkness split apart. 700,000 Terran warships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Their engines lit the void like a second sun from the ground. It looked as if the stars themselves were moving toward the planet. The sight froze the hearts of every Verkai who saw it. In the Terran flagship TSS, Titan's Wrath, Admiral Kane stood on the command deck. His voice was calm, but every word carried the weight of vengeance. "Open the galaxy-wide channel," he ordered, within seconds. His face appeared on every Verkai screen, military, civilian, public and private. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply spoke. "You burned New Horizon. You slaughtered our children. You left nothing but ashes." He paused, letting the silence sink in. "For every life you took, you will answer." Then he gave the order. "All ships commence fire." The void erupted. Railguns unleashed streams of molten metal. Missiles rained in endless waves. Energy beams cut across the darkness. The outer defense ring shattered in minutes. Fortresses that had stood for generations fell one after another. Exploding into debris, Verkai fleets surged forward to meet the humans. But the Terran formations cut through them with surgical precision. Destroyers flanked, carriers deployed thousands of fighters. Dreadnoughts tore apart enemy battleships with a single volley. On the ground, the Verkai Emperor watched the battle. From his palace balcony, the horizon burned. Fire streaked across the sky, and the sound of distant detonations rolled like thunder. He had once told his people that no enemy could ever touch the homeworld. Now that promise was dying before his eyes. After 4 hours of relentless assault, the outer fleets were gone. The inner defense ring tried to hold, but human boarding. Pods smashed into stations, spilling Marines into the corridors. Close quarters fighting raged as Verkai soldiers tried desperately to hold the choke points. Yet for every human that fell, 2 more took their place. From orbit, Terran artillery targeted the last planetary shield generators. The bombardment came in heavy, timed strikes, shield after shield collapsed in bursts of fire. The final dome flickered, then vanished, and the skies above the Verkai capital were open. Admiral Kane's voice came again over the comms. "This is your last chance," he said. "Surrender now, or we finish what we started." There was no reply. The Verkai fought on, refusing to yield. So Kane gave the final order. Target the military command districts, leave the civilians alive, but end their war machine. The strikes were brutal and precise. Entire weapons factories vanished in fireballs. Training centers, barracks, fleet headquarters, all gone in minutes. The Verkai military was being erased, not just beaten. Finally, after 12 hours of battle, the palace gates opened. The Emperor himself emerged, flanked by guards who laid down their weapons as they walked. He carried no crown, no armor, only a single white banner in his claws. He fell to his knees before Admiral Kane's image on the giant projection screens. His voice was broken. "The Verkai Dominion surrenders unconditionally." The words echoed across the galaxy. Worlds that had suffered under the Dominion's rule cheered in the streets. Allies and enemies alike watched in shock. No one had ever made the Verke, no one until humanity. A silence fell over the battlefield. The Terran fleet held its position, weapons still armed. Kane spoke one last time to the defeated Emperor. You will pay reparations for every life you took. You will dismantle your fleets, your weapons, your war foundries. If you rebuild them, we will return. Then he ended the transmission. The war was over, but the memory of New Horizon would never fade, and the name of humanity would forever be etched into the stars. The price of vengeance. The war was over. The Verke Dominion had fallen to its knees. The skies above their homeworld were quiet now, no longer lit by fire, but in the blackness beyond, wreckage still floated, silent reminders of the cost. Across the Terran fleet, the victory was celebrated, but no one forgot the price. Thousands of human ships lay scattered in the void, their hulls broken, their crews gone. Every captain, every soldier knew the faces of those they had lost. It was not just a victory, it was a wound that would never fully heal. On Earth, the news of surrender swept like a storm. Crowds filled the streets of every major city. Flags waved from towers, fireworks lit the night, but even in the celebrations, moments of silence were held for New Horizon. The images of the burning colony played on giant screens, and beneath them, the faces of its people, names read one by one, so no one would forget why this war began. Admiral Kane stood before the United Earth Council in the Hall of Nations. He did not smile. His uniform was clean, but the weight of war was in his eyes. We have struck back, he said. We have shown the galaxy that humanity will not be prey. He looked at the council, at the cameras, at the billions watching. But vengeance comes with a cost, and we must bear it. The treaty with the Verke was signed aboard the TSS Titan's Wrath. The Emperor himself, stripped of his crown, placed his seal on the document. Under its terms, the Verke were forbidden from rebuilding their war fleets. They would pay reparations for 100 years. Several of their worlds were ceded to Terran control, and thousands of human, alien prisoners were released. For the first time in history, the Dominion's grip on the galaxy was broken. On the ruined site of New Horizon, survivors returned. The land was scarred, the buildings gone. But people began to rebuild, brick by brick. Children ran again in the streets. And at the colony center, a memorial was raised, two great steel hands holding a burning star. Beneath it, the words, "They tried to erase us, we endured." In the months that followed, the galaxy shifted. Species that had once kept their distance from humans now sought alliances. Merchants opened new trade routes to Earth. Even former enemies sent envoys, eager to avoid the fate of the Verke. Whispers spread from one end of the galaxy to the other. Do not touch a human colony, they said, or Earth will come for you. But not everyone saw the humans as saviors. Some feared them now more than they had feared the Dominion. To build such a fleet, to strike with such force, it was a power few could match. In quiet rooms, other empires began to plan. They would not provoke Earth, but they would watch, they would remember. Back on the Titan's Wrath, Admiral Kane walked the halls in silence. He visited the memorial wall where the names of every fallen Terran soldier were carved. He ran his hand over the cold steel. He knew that though the war was over, the galaxy would never be the same, and neither would he. On the anniversary of New Horizons' destruction, the fleet gathered again, not for war, but for remembrance. 700,000 ships, lined in silent formation. Their running lights glowed like a river of stars. The Admiral spoke one final time. His voice carried to every corner of the Terran Alliance. We fought because they thought we would not. We won because we stood together. And we remember because forgetting would invite the same fate. In the quiet after his words, the fleet powered down all weapons. Every ship turned its lights toward the empty space where New Horizon once shone. For a full hour, there was no movement, no sound, just the silent vigil of an entire civilization honoring its dead. When the lights came back on, the fleet began to disperse. Ships returned to their home ports, crews to their families. The galaxy went on. But in the hearts of all who lived through it, one truth remained unshaken. Humanity had been tested. It had been scarred, but it had risen stronger than ever before. And now, in the deep silence of the stars, every empire knew, if you strike at Earth, Earth will strike back harder.